Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So we are choose to be chosen. So every week, for the entire 10 years of our existence, we have done this chant, I am remembering who I am. We keep singing it over and over. And I've had people tell me so many times that the first time that they've come to the service, that's the thing that sticks out to them is that song. Like, that's the song. Like, when I heard that. And yet, for those of us who come week after week, every time we sing it, doesn't it connect with something deep in our soul? I am remembering. So what are we remembering? We're remembering who we are. And so who are we? We are spiritual beings. We are the divine I am. And I think that's why even if you're new here for the first time, you keep coming, there is that inner knowing. You don't need books. You don't need teachers. As soon as you hear that, I am remembering who I am, there's something in you that immediately remembers who we are, that knows that it knows that it knows that we are spiritual beings. And the remembering is so important because even those of us who have been on this journey forever, every time I hear that, and I've been hearing it every week for years now, I have to remember yet again. Our spiritual journey is a constant remembering of what we already know. It's not new information, but we need to remember the power of remembering who and what we really are, spiritual beings, these infinite presence, because so much in the world wants to tell us we're all these other things. And we are all these other things. We have all these roles, but the most essential thing to know is that we are spiritual beings. So in talking about being chosen, we might have sort of a negative feeling about that because, sorry, I'm just aware of this little bump. Because perhaps you've heard that Jewish people were told that they were chosen. There was a TV series on recently about Jesus, the chosen. So there's a feeling of if someone is chosen, that means all the other people aren't chosen. And that's not really in alignment with what we know to be true. So what we're here to know is that we are all chosen. That what that means is that there is a spiritual presence that has chosen 8 billion people to be on this planet. And it's not just DNA. It's not just that our parents had sex, or however. Now there's, it could be through other ways at this point. Those can all do it sort of biologically and mechanically, but that's not why we are here. I think of I hope he doesn't mind, I didn't ask his permission, but my brother, Rob, who was an atheist at the time, but he had these physical desires to achieve certain things, so he started taking yoga classes, and he really wanted to do these cool poses. But the teacher was, when you're doing yoga, you're also working on your breath, and it was through this breathing, we all breathe, but it was through this breathing, suddenly he popped into a new expanded state, and he's like, oh, there's something more to this whole breath thing. And that's what got him on his journey of becoming a yoga teacher and on his path, just through the breath. So our breath, it's not just a mechanistic thing to keep our heart beating. It's connecting with spirit. So this spiritual essence has breathed its life into every person on this planet. And this is a very important thing to recognize because so much of our life, we're doing comparing. And we just do it naturally. It's part of human nature. So, and there's accuracy to it. There are certain people who are born with greater abilities than others. I'm amazed. I always used to hear from my parents who met over Mozart how great Mozart was because I think he wrote his first symphony at age 6 or some crazy thing. And that seems so unusual, but now if you're online and YouTube, there's all these little kid prodigies. I'm like, wow, there's a bunch of these kids doing extraordinary things. They seem to be born with it. Genetics, reincarnation. That's not for today's talk. Interesting conversation, but not for today's talk. But even if there's those who aren't like immediate child prodigies, there's definitely gifts, and if you nurture them, you can become exceptional at something. So because I have a sports dude at home, I think athletes is where I go first. You have the extraordinary people like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, and then you have the regular extraordinary people, the professional basketball players, and there's degrees to everything: music, art, economics, who people are good at math, people are whatever. There's always degrees. But spirituality is the one thing where there's no degrees. There's no more spirit in me than in you. There's no more spirit in the Pope than in you. There's no more spirit in Jesus or Moses or Buddha or Krishna than there is in you. There's no more spirit in us than there is in a dog or trees. The fullness of spirit is in all life forms. It is radically egalitarian. Don't you love that phrase? I heard that once 25 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. Radically egalitarian. We are all equally filled to overflowing with spirit. And so in that, each and every one of us is chosen. We are all chosen by Spirit. Spirit chose itself to breathe itself into form as all of us. And so at this time and place, we were all chosen. All 8 million people, wherever we are in the country, in the world. We won't go into the cosmos, but at least on this planet. These topics could go on forever. I tell you, there's no limit. But we'll just stick with our world. It breathed itself into form. So I just want us to take that in, and I want you just to say, so we're all chosen, and then the question is, do we choose to be chosen? We have to see it in order to activate it. So we have to, I originally was going with called, because we all have a calling, the chosen, the calling, but I read somewhere, I don't know, you just read a lot of different things, God's always calling, you have to pick up and answer the phone now. You got to answer. So to say I am chosen is saying I'm choosing to be chosen. I know that all beings, all 8 billion people, and all life is chosen, but it doesn't matter. We are not activating that truth until we claim it for yourself, that I am chosen. There's a power in that when you start thinking about I am chosen, what comes to you? People who feel chosen feel like a certain sense of like, oh, that means I have to show up. That my life is not irrelevant. Me just sitting in the corner by myself and not participating in whatever that looks like. If I'm chosen, that's going to start to feel really uncomfortable. If I'm just sort of living a little bit energetically, just doing the bare minimum, and at the same time saying I'm chosen, we're going to start to feel the dissonance of that. I'm just doing whatever happens to feel good or makes me comfortable, but I say I'm chosen. Is that why I'm here? Is just to make myself feel comfortable? Do you see that? That to really start claiming, and I think it's why sometimes we resist to really claim and accept that we're chosen, because it starts to become a little bit more demanding of us. We have to become a little bit more present to what's happening in our world, in our big world, and also in our immediate world. I'm chosen. I'm not here just to be a bystander. I'm chosen. How am I participating in this world? So I just want you to claim that. I'm going to invite you to just claim that right now. So just after me, say, I am chosen. I am chosen. We are all chosen. And I am chosen. Okay, so now I want you to close your eyes, and we're just going to say it again. And I want you to see how it feels in your body. We're going to say it slowly. And when I say how it feels, I don't want you to say it feels good or bad, because that immediately puts us in a binary, dualistic experience. It's not good or bad. It's just what it is. So just say, how does it feel without a comparative judgment? Just how does it feel when I say, what's going on inside of my body when I say I am chosen? And I'm just going to say, we're all chosen, so even if it feels like you're making yourself special, we'll let that go, because we know everyone here is chosen. But I want you to feel it for yourself, how it feels. So after me, say silently to yourself, I am chosen. Just notice how it feels. And I want you to say it again, slowly. I am chosen. one last time, again, slowly, quietly, silently to yourself, I am chosen. Breathing that in. And we give thanks for that awareness right now. We give thanks that we are all here, online, everywhere. We are chosen. And so my invitation for you this entire month, we're only on June 2nd, so you got the whole month, is to say this once a day. I'm not even saying it twice or 3 times a day, so you can't say you don't have time. I am chosen. When I first started therapy back in college, the first time, my dad paid up for a bunch, so I knew they were scheduled, and so I went to the first one, and then I missed the second one, and then I went to the third one because it was already scheduled, and I showed up, and I go, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I missed last week, I forgot. And he goes, no, you didn't. I got so mad, this guy didn't even know me, and he's telling me what I forgot and didn't forget, no way. So I'm like, you don't know that I didn't forget. And he goes, well, generally, if we think something is important, we're going to remember it. And if the things that you think about and you care about, you're not going to forget. I never missed, for 4 years, I never missed another session because I had no out. However, there's times where we legitimately forget. So I'm going to invite you to say that just once, like that, quietly and to yourself, one time every day for this entire month. You might legitimately forget. You might have some huge project at work and you're just like full on. But notice as soon as you do remember, whenever that is, and notice, okay, did I legitimately forget, or was there some part of me that's resisting this idea that I am chosen? Because I am chosen is a powerful, powerful energy inside our soul. And so it might make us uncomfortable. That's why I'm also saying only do it once. But just let yourself, to the extent that you can, one time every day, and I'll be checking in with you. So this is homework that has follow-up. You have to come back next week, though, even if you didn't do it. So I am chosen. So as we begin with this idea, we start here, I am chosen. And so what this means, then, I matter, my voice matters, my being matters, how I choose to live my life, everything I do suddenly matters. It's not irrelevant. It's not just my own private, if I live a sort of in my own little world, it doesn't matter because nobody knows what I'm doing. Spirit knows everything. And that was weird. Did you hear that? Okay. So it came from over there. So when we listen to that I am chosen and we make our decisions, it doesn't mean we have to live. This becomes an issue. That doesn't mean we are then responsible to everybody else in making our choices to make other people happy. Even if you're living in your own little world, it's what's going on inside of me, what's going on in my internal world. It matters. It matters. The things that you're thinking, the things that you're contemplating, even if nobody else in the whole world knows, it will matter to you in the infinite and eternal. So we need to be compassionate because we're all incredibly limited human beings, so we have to be compassionate, tender with ourselves, but also willing. So in this idea of choice, I got to watch 2 fabulous TED Talks, and I'm going to post them sometime this week because they're so good. One of them is by Barry Schwartz, who is a psychologist, and he was really interested in psychology and economy. But he said some really, really interesting things, and some of you may already know this intuitively, but there was this big research study that he was sharing that it found that it was an Vanguard insurance company, which has like 1 million customers. It was a really big study, and they were offering, I believe, it was either life insurance or retirement benefits, I don't remember which. And they first offered it with only 2 options, and a lot of people came. And then they offered it again, I think with something like 50 options. And people didn't show up. Even though they would have gotten a $5,000 benefit from Vanguard, they were offering money if you came to it. People didn't come. Because 50 choices was too hard. 2 choices, I can make a decision. 50 choices, and it felt like such a big deal. This is my end of life planning. Sometimes when we're making choices, we can get paralyzed. So I'm going to talk about that. And then he also said, when we have too many choices, we also become dissatisfied. And he gave the most perfect example, and I wish I did all the different, well, anyways. His example was long time ago when he first started wearing jeans, he said there wasn't a lot of options. You get a pair of jeans, and they'd be a little stiff and a little hard, and I don't know, I remember doing this in the 80s, like you move around, get them moving, you wash them a couple times, and they get comfortable. And he said, that's how I bought jeans, all my jeans, and he goes, but they all got old, and I went back to the store, and I said, okay, I want to buy a pair of jeans, and here's my measurements. And the guy's like, well, do you want slim fit, boot cut, button fly, zipper fly? And he said, waist, hip. And he's like, what? I just want a pair of jeans. And they have all these options. And then he said, okay. So he worked with the person. He said, it took me an hour to find one pair of jeans. And I walked out of there, and he said, now, I will say the pair of jeans actually fit initially better than my jeans from 20 years ago, but I was less satisfied. I was less satisfied because now I had all these options. My expectations now were very high, and I kept thinking, oh, well, I could have maybe taken that other one with those options, with that configuration, or maybe I should, and I couldn't just enjoy the jeans I had because I had all these choices. That in fact, the more choices that we have can make us feel unsatisfied with our other choices because there's all these possibilities. And he said we tend to blame ourselves now because, well, if I'm not having a good time, it's because I made the wrong choice. I should do this, or I should do that. I could have done this, or I could have done that. And so it's just put so much pressure on us. So the problem with so many choices, and he begins his talk with saying, here's the advantages of having a lot of choices. And he said, I'm just going to focus on the non-advantages because everybody else talks about the advantages of having a lot of choices, is paralysis of decision. When you have so many choices, it's hard to know what to choose, and a dissatisfaction. So because we are in a spiritual community, we're going to apply this to our spiritual journey. Our spiritual journey today has more options than it's ever had. For those of us who were on the journey 20 years ago, my options were just so much less. I mean, there were still options. And then 20 years before that, in terms of popular culture, if I want, in the spiritual progressive world, there is so much out there. All you have to go do is Google anything, and there's a million, I'm being hyperbolic, but millions of teachers, workshops, books, classes, practices. We are just inundated with so many choices, just spiritually, not even talking about the rest of part of life. We talk about, I've mentioned here even, there's 8 billion people, which means there's 8 billion paths to God. I mean, we all have these a million paths, we all are ways. When we sit in class and people talk about the 5 books that most inspired them, always I'm amazed how different it is. I always thought there'd be a lot of overlap, but there isn't. People come in and the 5 books that inspire people are so different. We are all so unique now. And so, but sometimes it can lead us to some paralysis of moving forward. Okay, I do all these things, I have all these paths, I have all these options. How do I move forward? How do I answer that call? Because now my call includes the entire universe. The infinite presence. We say it's in everything. So how do I know what my call is? My specific call is when there's so many options. So we can have paralysis of choice, and we can feel, even when we do choose, a sense of dissatisfaction. Because I can do something, and then I can come to service, and someone's like, oh my gosh, I'm reading the best book, or I just did the most amazing workshop, you should do it. And I immediately feel like, oh shoot, maybe I should be doing that, because look how incredibly joyful they are. And I'm sort of, maybe so, and then I go here, and then I go here. I mean, having been in these communities for 30 years, this is a deal when there's so many options. You are chosen. What does that even look like when you have to make a choice? It can be really hard. So it was really nice that I had another TED Talk that answered the question for me. No, it was wonderful. It was by Ruth Chang, and again, I will post both of these. And she was talking about how to make hard choices. And what I loved is how she defined hard choices, because until I heard that, I didn't quite understand it. Hard choices, so easy choices are when it's so clear, this is my way forward. Like you just know, like this is, I totally resonate with this. All those other things are great, but I know this is my way forward. And so we choose. It could be, and again, I'm talking spiritually, but it could be on anything. So that's an easy choice. It's like this a choice or this choice. The hard choice, she said, is when all things are sort of equal. Like I really could go this way. I really could go that way. I really could go this way. Like it's not clear, you do the cost benefit, and they all sort of come out even. So she's saying that external choices don't decide it for you anymore. That's when it becomes a harder choice. And so what she says, which I love, is we get to be creative choosers. We get to be creative agents of our own destiny. We just get to choose. We can just create our own. She said, just create your own, what matters to you and what you want to experience, and then commit to it. What if you take out that there's any right or wrong? I remember Reverend Cynthia James said this to me once. She said, Harriet, there's no wrong answer. There is no wrong answer. You cannot choose wrongly. What if we just took that off our plate, that as we have these infinite choices and we have to pick the right choice, the most perfect choice, or we got it wrong. If there's no wrong, then you can just make a choice. And that's what Ruth Chang, she's a philosopher, professor at Rutgers, by the way, says, is that pick the choice that you choose. That is agency. And then commit to it. So don't just say, I'm going to pick this and sort of I'll just read a book here or there. I mean, we've all done it. I certainly have done it where you're reading a book and you like it and you're sort of putting your toe in the water. That's cool. I like it. This is wonderful. I just had this picture of, what is his name? The guy who wrote Untethered Soul. I don't know. Michael Singer. And everyone loved Michael Singer, loved Untethered Soul. And I read it. It was like putting my toe in it. I read it. I liked it. I had no problems with it. It just didn't call to me. It's paying attention to those things. A million options. It was a great option. Just one that, no, that's not the option I'm going to choose. So we have to start making our own decisions. And then she said, commit. You'll never know until you actually commit. So if you like Michael Singer and you like The Untethered Soul, you don't just read a book. You start really learning from him or what his process is. You give yourself to whatever it is that you say, oh, I want to choose this. I don't know if it's the right choice, but the only way I'm going to know is I give myself to it. I appreciated this because I have found that this spiritual journey is actually a really hard journey. And I was thinking about this because I loved when Reverend Z and Reverend Melissa were here. Off the charts, music off the chart, loved their talk, except I got a little triggered only because the things they were saying are things that I've said a million times. And I realized, I don't know if I even believe that anymore. And that was like, I had to go back and reassess that. And this is something that I learned. I remember a minister saying, so it's the idea is if we surrender our life to the Divine One, that our life will be nothing but joy and beauty, and everything goes easy and everything flows, you're in the flow. So you open yourself up to the divine love, intelligence of the universe, that creativity, the joy, the freedom, the beauty, the bliss, the peace starts pouring through and as you and animating your life, and life just becomes so simpler. You get your bloated nothingness out of the way and you let spirit move through and as you, and things just work so easily. I've heard that so much on this spiritual journey, and I believed it, and it was true for me for a while until it wasn't. And part of that was because suddenly I had options that were I didn't have a clarity. So I'll give an example. I had my calling to ministry Well, first of all, as most of you know, I had an experience of the Christ when I was a child, so I had love of Christ. Not necessarily to any church, but of the Christ. So I had that. Then, I come from an open-minded family, so I'm studying and learning all these things, and so then I found New Thought, and I get a call to ministry. I'm in CSL classes, and I get the call to ministry from Paramahansa Yogananda and Shunryu Suzuki, which would have been cooler if I knew who Yogananda was. But at the time, I had just seen a picture, so I went to a bookstore and found out who he was. Shunryu I knew. I had read Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. So I had this option, and so I start reading Autobiography of a Yogi. So I'm taking this vision, okay, I'm being told very clearly, very directly, you need to be a minister. But they never said of what. And I'm like, okay, but what am I going to be a minister of? So I have Yogananda, who I'm learning from. I had read Zen Mind, Beginner Mind, and practiced some Zen meditation. By this time, I had learned a lot from Joel Goldsmith and immersed myself in him. Michael Beckwith is like a world unto himself, the Agape community. They were CSL at the time, but he certainly had his own vibe. And then there's CSL, and so I'm like, and then I liked my tradition that I grew up in. So I went to the minister of the church that I was raised in, and he was cool and open-minded. He had studied with the Dalai Lama and with Mother Teresa, also had been a Pittsburgh Steelers football player. So he was a cool guy. I went to an open-minded church where, of course, the minister after him was like really into Zen. I mean, I could have gone that path. I could have gone the unity path. I could have gone the CSL path. I could have gone, well, the Agape was CSL at the time. Did I want to go yoga? I really loved what I was reading with Yogananda. Did I want to go that path? What path? What path? And I kept asking the question, what path? Because the hard part about if you get a vision is like, then I'm waiting for spirit to tell me everything, like every little detail. And I had to make that choice. Love the Robert Frost poem. We have to choose the path. So even though I had some guidance of where I was going, I had to choose. And ultimately, I even went, even at that time, there was an International New Thought Alliance conference in San Diego, and I went out there, because I was in DC at the time, and I was just, nothing was coming. I was doing everything to make myself available, like, show me. And I had to choose. There were little signs, but ultimately what I knew is that I chose what only made sense to my heart, which was to go to Agape, because that was such an amazing and extraordinary community that allowed that people were practicing Hinduism. We had Buddhists, we had a mystical Jewish group. There was just and they were indigenous cultures, earth-based. They were integrating those rituals. It was such an extraordinary community. So it was CSL, but it was CSL on steroids. It was just amazing. So ultimately, I'm like, I can't imagine. I love all of these things, but I'll go to a place that accepts all of those things. And to be a minister, there's structure. And at that time, Agape was CSL, so I'm going through CSL. I like Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes, for those of you who don't know, is the founder of CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living. There's been name changes, but we'll just keep it with Centers for Spiritual Living. And he was one of these guys. He was like a Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was an integrator, reading Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, what are the principles? It's powerful, powerful stuff. Like, what are the principles that are underlying all of these teachings? It was great. Like, oh, this is a really great base for me, because it allows me to learn the universal truth principles and be able to do all these other things. So that's the path that I chose. And I say I chose it because I was never told from a vision. I was just told by so many different teachers. I had to find something that could include it all that made sense to my soul. I had to choose, and I had to commit. It was like 7 years of straight classes, and you're supposed to take time off, and I didn't, because I did get guidance about keep moving. But it's a lot of years of classes, a lot of money. It is a commitment. And I had challenges along the way. And the whole journey has been a challenge. And every step of the way, I've had to make choices. And every step of the way, I had to commit to those choices. And that's why I think I love that TED Talk so much, because I recognize, this is what life is today, especially today more than ever before. We all have so many choices all of the time in our spiritual journey, just like everything else. So what food you're going to eat, what are the news outlets you're going to listen to? I mean, everything. There's a million choices. Going to a grocery store, it's overwhelming. Spirituality has become that same thing. We have access to the deepest world's traditions where there's so much depth and richness. We have access to the profound spiritual teachers. You can learn from a Tibetan Buddhist monk if you want to, and never leave your home. You can learn from a lot of people like Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's transitioned to the other side, but you can still learn from him. You can learn from Hindus, from Christians, from Jews, from people who are free spirits and don't belong to any teaching, like a Reverend Michael, or Ernest Holmes, or Joel Goldsmith. We have access to it all. And part of the responsibility of being chosen is to make those choices. One of the things Ruth Chang says, if we don't make those choices and commit, and remember, you can always read, if it doesn't work, over time, I've committed to different things. Like then I was learning from Ramana Maharshi, and we know integral theory. When you do one thing, doesn't rule out anything else, but for the time that you're doing, commit. Do it, and do it with your whole heart, body, mind, and soul. Learn everything that you can learn from whatever tradition or teacher or practice that you're doing. Just at one point, we have to stop putting our little toes in there and dive in without fear of drowning. Because you're in spirit, you will never drown. You will always experience life, because spirit, going back to the beginning, is fully in everything. It is not only in one teaching, it is not only in one practice, it is fully in every single choice you can make. There is the fullness of spirit. In every option that you can make, there is the fullness of spirit. But we have to choose. That is an essential part of being chosen. So first, this week, we are really anchoring in, I am chosen, to really choose to be chosen. And then I also invite you to start looking at the choices you've already made, the hard choices that you might have already made on your spiritual journey. You're all here because you've made choices. Most of you, I'm looking around, nobody was anyone here that was raised in New Thought from the beginning? That's right, you were. Reverend Kathy was. Was there anyone else? So we've all come here from someplace else. We've all made choices along the way. So just look at that. What made you make those choices as you're moving forward? What am I diving into anything right now? Have I made choices and I've gotten comfortable with it? So look at your choices and where you want to move forward. Because I think of this wonderful quote. It's by St. Gregory of Nyssa. And he said, "The essence of perfection is that is impossible to become perfect in the moment. It always has a striving forward to a higher perfection." So no matter how many hard choices you've made to get here, we're still growing, and we will grow forever. Michael Beckwith, who's one of my many teachers, he had one of those experiences of expanded state in consciousness, and it has stayed with him. And I've said that to people, like he's still very human, don't get me wrong, but he can access that expanded state like that and raise people to it. But we should also know he spends 5 hours, or at least I'm not around him now, but when I was there, he spent 5 hours a day on his spiritual practices. He didn't go, oh, I'm there, I'm done. It's constant. It is constant. It is constant. We are constantly re-choosing, just like I am remembering. We have to constantly remember every week as much as we can. I am remembering. We know the truth. I think we're all in agreement that we know who we are. That's about our choices, about whatever we're making, whatever our commitment is. We have to keep committing. We have to keep saying, and if it's no longer working, if it's no longer bringing us alive, then we might have been pulled to make a hard choice of, do I take another? Is there something else I want to give myself completely to? Not just little tiptoes, but immerse myself in. You with me? Because you are chosen. And I'm so glad to be with you. Let's pray. Boy, it feels good. I love this so much. What an awe-inspiring awareness to know that behind all creation that we can see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, behind all the cosmos and the billions and trillions of galaxies, behind all of it is this radiant, infinite, bliss-filled, love-filled presence that is infinitely intelligent. And that, in essence, this beingness is all there's ever been and ever will be, and we can never, ever add on to it or make it better. It is already whole, perfect, and complete. But what an incredible and also awesome awareness to know that we are this infinite, eternal nature, each and every one of us, and that we have been called, we have been chosen to arrive at this time and this place to show up in that one particular way that only we can do, that only we can vibrate as. We, each and every one of us, are chosen to be this unique expression of the one power and the one presence. We are here to shine the light in our own beautiful and magnificent way, and it is essential to the fulfillment of this one power and this one presence that we say and answer yes, that we step forth and participate as only we can, that is absolutely in alignment with our own soul. We do not have to judge ourselves by anyone else but that beautiful, loving, infinite love intelligence at the center of our being. And from this place, we make our choices, and we continue to make our choices, and we continue to make our choices so that we arrive in each and every moment alive, alive, alive as only we can be, shining our unique light, whether it's by ourselves shining our unique light, arrive in aliveness in that solitude, and arriving in aliveness with others. This is the aliveness of life. We are chosen, and we choose to remember that we choose to know that we are chosen, and make and allow our choices and commit to them and allow them to become fully us, to take that path that is less traveled, and that it truly does make all the difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being those courageous beings that make those choices to be your unique self. What a blessing. I am so grateful for the power and the presence of God alive and activated as each and every person in this room, online, and who is on this beautiful spiritual path. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in gratitude, we just let it be as we say together now, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.